Welcome to this episode of the Sports Detective Podcast Show. My name is James Williams, and today the MVP race in the NFL is over. Or is it? So, Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills, went to Detroit this past weekend and beat what we thought was the best team in the NFL, 48-42. Josh Allen was spectacular. He had 4 touchdowns. He had like over 420 or something, or 430 like total yards. Probably had one of the best games of his career, going on the road against what we thought was maybe the best team in the NFL, and dominated. And they needed every bit of that 48 points. A lot of people, and including the odds makers in Vegas, have basically written the MVP for Josh Allen, basically saying it's over. If you look at the odds right now, Josh Allen is a minus 900 favorite. And I kind of thought, just watching football over the last few weeks, that, yeah, it should be conventional wisdom that Josh Allen is the MVP favorite. But a lot of people have basically kind of come out and said, and they're doing the numbers comparison between Josh Allen and Lamar, and they're saying, like, hey, we got to start talking about Lamar Jackson potentially being the MVP over Josh Allen this season. And this is a thing that happened. Dan Orlovsky on Sunday tweeted the MVP race was over. I'll go ahead and just show you guys that tweet. So he tweeted that. And then basically, look, that is 2.5 million impressions on Twitter. And then you just do, if you go through and read a lot of the comments, a lot of the people are saying, like, hey, Lamar Jackson is actually the MVP and the race isn't over and we don't know what you're talking about. And a lot of people have been quoting that tweet and other tweets basically saying that the MVP race is over. And they have been quoting it with this stat head-to-head comparison between Josh Allen and Lamar. And before I show it to you guys, I will admit this. After I spent a lot of time today diving in between the numbers and the difference of numbers between Lamar and Josh Allen, I will admit it is a lot closer than I thought it was when I was heading into it. So I'll go ahead and show you guys these numbers here, and we'll kind of parse through them here because I do think these numbers are a little bit misleading. So we'll go ahead and I'll show you guys this head-to-head graphic between, between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. And so here's what it looks like, guys. You can see here the things that are tinted green, the stats that are tinted greens. That means that in a head-to-head comparison between Lamar and Josh Allen, Lamar is better in that stat, right? So you kind of look at this just on its surface and you're like, geez, Lamar's got a lot of green here. He's got a lot of green here. And you look at that, you're like, geez, this should be like kind of an overwhelming slam dunk argument for Lamar Jackson. Well, if you actually dive deeper into this stuff and you counter in some, I think, in my opinion, and probably in your opinion, important stats that aren't included on this, it's actually a lot closer than you think. So some of this stuff I do think is just kind of like nonsensical and aren't things that we use when it comes to, like, for your argument for MVP. Things like completion percentage, yards per attempt, rushing yards per attempt. I don't think those are ever been things that we've done in arguments that's like, aha, this guy has the higher completion percentage. We know that he is now the MVP. Aha, one more yard per attempt passing and rushing, case closed. So I do think those are kind of like little fluffer stuff that, in my opinion, is not important for deciding the MVP. Okay, let's dive deeper into some of this stuff here. And I'll give you guys kind of my takeaway when you look at some of this stuff. So obviously, when you look at this on the surface, you look at, let's go down here. We're going to get into the yard stuff here in a minute. But passing touchdowns, you look at Lamar, 34 passing touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Josh Allen, 25 passing touchdowns, 5 interceptions. And you just look at that right there and you're like, oh my God, I'd rather have the 34-3 over the 25-5. Well, I'll tell you why that is incredibly misleading. I think instead of passing touchdowns, you should factor in total touchdowns, especially when you count in Lamar's passing touchdowns, 34, his rushing and touchdowns, 3. That's 37 combined touchdowns. If you add in Josh Allen's 25 passing touchdowns with his 11 rushing touchdowns, it's 37-36. So it's basically the same. And if you wanted to, I don't think it's, you can maybe say, if you really were really pro Josh Allen in this argument, you would say, hey, let's factor in That the touchdown pass to himself that he had in the snow game against San Francisco. If you factor that in, then it would be like 37-37. So basically equal. And you'd be like, well, James, what are you talking about? Lamar still has less interceptions. That should be a pro Lamar point. Well, if you factor in fumbles lost into this equation, Lamar Jackson has 5 fumbles lost this season. So that puts him at 8 total turnovers. Josh Allen only has 2 fumbles lost. So Josh Allen turnovers 7, Lamar 8. Advantage Josh Allen. But again, when we're talking about MVP here, and I'm going to reiterate this a lot during this video, when the margins are that minuscule, I'm not going to just give somebody the award because, oh my God, they had one more touchdown. I'm not going to do that. I think that's stupid. I think that was as stupid as the people in the NBA that were making the argument this past summer that they're like, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander got the 1 seed, bro. That means MVP should be his. And it's like, you look that up, and it's like, oh, the reason they got the 1 seed wasn't because they won 7 more games than them. They got it because they had they won a tiebreaker. They had the same exact records, the Nuggets and the Thunder. So I thought that was, when it's that close, I just think it's kind of silly. Okay. The other stat here that I think is incredibly misleading, and I think it's a stat we should all agree to like use and weigh a lot less when we are talking about quarterbacks, and that is passer rating. Why do I say that? Passer rating is a stat that I think is really outdated. I know I'm going to get a comment about that where someone's like, what do you mean passer rating's outdated? Passer rating only takes into effect completion percentage, passing yards, and passing touchdowns and interceptions. Okay. So that means if you have a high completion percentage, you have a low or a high touchdown to interception ratio, you're going to be really, really high in that stat. What I think is a better stat to grade quarterbacks on is QBR because it takes into effect all of the passing stuff, but then it also takes into effect rushing attempts, fumbles. It also tries to like isolate the quarterback away from the rest of the offense to kind of give a better job. It's a more complete stat on a quarterback's play is what I'm trying to say. And if you look at that, which is left off of this graphic, conveniently for the pro Lamar people, Josh Allen is leading the NFL in QBR at 79.4, while Lamar Jackson, I think he's either second or third with 76.0. So again, pretty small difference, but edge to Josh Allen. So I think those are probably 3 of the 4 biggest things if you're going to compare a quarterback stats and you're actually going to go into it, or 3, I shouldn't say 3 of the 4, but 3 of the biggest things that you should weigh in. And again, we're pretty 50-50 on all this stuff. So if you are going to make the pro Lamar argument, because there is a pro Lamar argument here, and this is why I said at the beginning, this is a lot closer of a race than I actually thought before I actually started looking at these numbers. The first one is here. And this is the one that I would, if I was a Lamar person, I'd be banging the drum on this. Passing yards plus rushing yards. If you combine both of those, if you combine total yards, Lamar has 4,323. Josh Allen has 3,879. So Lamar has like 440-ish more combined yards than Josh Allen, which is a pretty significant margin. It's not like insanely big, but it's pretty significant. It's enough where I would be like, hey, he does have a pretty good amount more yards than Josh Allen. The other thing that is a big pro Lamar argument, and this is probably the biggest narrative that people have been pounding the chest on. I'll go ahead and just get off of this screen here now because you guys already know this one. I don't need to show you this graphic so that you understand it. And that is the head-to-head matchup that happened earlier this year. And that's been a narrative that people have been saying is like, hey, well, what would have happened if that game and that result would have happened this past Sunday instead of week 4. And if you guys don't remember that game, I'll reiterate that, or I'll kind of retell what happened in that game for you guys. So basically what happened, it was week 4, I believe, week 4 or week 5. Bills, hold on, I have it here. Yeah, Bills go to the Ravens. So it's a Ravens home game. And the Ravens absolutely pummel the Buffalo Bills. They win 35-10. Josh Allen has no touchdowns in that game. He has no turnovers, but really did not have that much of an impact on the game. Lamar had 2 touchdowns, and the Ravens pummeled them. And kind of a narrative that people have been saying is like, hey, well, what would happen if this would have happened last week? My retort to that would be I think the Bills and Josh Allen are playing a lot better than what they did at the start of the season. And two, even if you go and isolate that game, if you're making an MVP of that game between the Bills and the Ravens earlier in the season, Lamar wouldn't have been the MVP. He played well, but the reason they won that game and the MVP of that game was Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry won them that game. Derrick Henry had 24 rushing attempts for 199 yards, including an 87-yard touchdown run. He also had 3 receptions for 10 yards and 1 receiving touchdown. And Lamar had 8 less touches, I guess you could say, than Derrick Henry in that game. I don't know if you call a completion a touch, but he went 13 for 18, 156 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then he also had 6 rushing attempts for 54 yards, 1 touchdown. So a solid game from Lamar, a good game from Lamar, but it wasn't something that I would be like, oh my God, Lamar Jackson outdueled Josh Allen, and that's the nail in the coffin for Lamar and the MVP. I don't think we should do it that way. If it was something where like they, it was a huge back and forth and Lamar ended up, outdueling Josh Allen, or even if Lamar had like a big game in that game, I'd be more open to the argument. And I still think it is like a pro Lamar point. I don't think it means nothing, but I don't think it means everything, or I don't think that should be a deciding factor. So, in my opinion, I would still go with Josh Allen. And the biggest reason why is because these last few weeks, him and the Bills beat the 2 best teams in the NFL because Josh Allen was the quarterback. They beat the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs, and they needed every little bit of Josh Allen. When Josh Allen put the game away, I believe it was a touchdown rush, if my memory is correct. It was 28-19. They needed to get that 2-score lead because you cannot have only a 1-score lead against Patrick Mahomes and feel safe. So I thought Josh Allen played really well in that game. And then also this Lions game that we had this past weekend. Everyone thought, oh my God, Lions lock for the Super Bowl. They're pretty heavy favorites. They were the number 1 favorite in all of the NFL to win the Super Bowl. Josh Allen goes into Detroit and absolutely just demolishes the Lions, dropping 48 on their heads, including 4 touchdowns, 400 yards. And those are the 2 best wins if we're doing the college football rankings or whatever. Those are the 2 best wins of anyone in the entire NFL. And I think that should mean something. Versus Lamar's 2 best wins and the Ravens' 2 best wins this year are against the Bills, which is a good win. Bills, again, they still are in line to get the 1 seed right now. And then the next best team they played, it's a 2-9-5 teams, and they both have rookie quarterbacks, and that's the Commanders and the Broncos. So again, good wins. It's good to beat, winning football teams. But if you're just comparing the stakes of that stuff, and again, the college football playoff rankings, the Bills do have the advantage in kind of like, the fashion of this and kind of like the zest. What's the right word I'm trying to say? The style points. The Bills have more style points. Josh Allen has more style points right now. And when you're talking about MVP, that stuff just matters. And I also think the biggest thing that Lamar really has going against him right now, because here's the thing about Lamar, dude's already won 2 MVPs. Statistically, this is going to be his best season ever. This will be his statistical best season ever. Like, he's playing phenomenally this year. The things that he's working against him is obviously the Bills have a better record than Lamar right now. Despite the Ravens winning head-to-head, the Bills are 11-3. The Ravens are 9-5. There's also the baggage of Lamar already having 2 MVPs and the fact that he won it last year. And again, when we were talking about the Jokic thing earlier, the fact that, you've won 2 MVPs, but you've never made a Super Bowl, you've never won a Super Bowl, that's something that people are going to think about. And, people think that some of these awards and Super Bowls, they really mean something. So they don't want to give you a 3rd MVP if you're never going to make a Super Bowl or you're not going to make a Super Bowl. So that's definitely something that voters, and it's probably unfair, but something that voters are going to weigh heavily is the fact that, like, hey, what's this guy going to, I'm going to vote him for MVP, and then they might lose in the wild card, right? Like, that's something that people are going to factor in when they think that the Bills probably have a better chance to go to the Super Bowl. And that's sometimes what this award comes down to is who's the best player on the better team. And the Bills right now, even though they lost head to head earlier in the season, I think if they played tomorrow, the Bills would, at neutral site, Bills would probably be favored. I could be wrong. Maybe the Ravens would surprise us, but Bills won 8 out of the last 9 games. Ravens in the last 4 are 2-2. And that's how Josh Allen has kind of separated himself in the MVP race. So I also think too, this will be the last thing that I'll say because we did the statistical stuff earlier. I do think there's a chance that Josh Allen will catch up in yards, maybe not surpass Lamar in yards, but I think he'll catch up quite a bit in yards over the last 3 games because this is who the Bills play the last 3 games. They have the Patriots, they have the Jets, and then they have the Patriots. 2 not very good teams. 2 teams that do not want to win football games. Or at least the Patriots I know don't. They want to get a better draft pick. Jets might want to too. So 3 pretty easy games versus Lamar has got to play the Steelers. Very good defense. Houston kind of up and down this year, but I still think their defense is really solid. And then they finish off the season with the Browns. Lamar's only way to win it is he's going to have to dominate in those 3 games. And he's going to have to put up good numbers, and they're going to have to win all of those 3 games. And if they do that, he's got a really good shot of doing it. But if the Bills win out, which they probably should, and Kansas City maybe falls down because Patrick Mahomes is hurt right now, and I think there's a good chance that the Chiefs might just say screw it and sit him out the next 2 games because they play Saturday and then they play Wednesday. So the Chiefs are in a stretch right now where they have 3 games in 10 days. If that happens and the Bills somehow take over the 1 seed, it's over. It's over. If Josh Allen gets that 1 seed, MVP 100% over if it's not already. So there you have it. That's kind of my breakdown of everything here. A lot closer than I thought it was going to be and what the odds makers are saying right now in Vegas, but I still give a slight edge to Josh Allen. So let me know what you guys think. Maybe you completely agree with my argument. Maybe there's other stats you want to throw in here, or maybe you think I'm a complete idiot for thinking that Josh Allen's better than Lamar Jackson this year. So that's going to do it for this episode here today. If you like this, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. That is the number one thing that you can do to help support the show, and it costs you absolutely $0. And again, leave a comment. Feel free to check out other videos on the Sports Detective Podcast channel page, and we'll talk to you next time. See ya.